All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about what it takes to make your retrieval augmented generation system, your RAG system, go from pretty good to absolutely exceptional. And it all starts with one fundamental technique that can literally make or break your AI's performance. That technique is called chunking.
So have you ever had this happen? You've built your RAG system, you've fed it all your data, you ask it a question, and the answer you get back is just meh. You know, it's like it's just scratching the surface, or maybe it's even completely missing the point. If that sounds familiar, don't worry, you are in exactly the right place.
Okay, check this out. This slide shows the problem perfectly. On the left, you get the super vague answer. Yeah, it's technically correct, but it's not helpful at all. But on the right, you get a precise, detailed response that even gives you examples, like regression and classification. Now here's the kicker. Both of these answers came from the exact same documents. The only thing that changed was how we chopped up that information before giving it to the AI. That is the power of smart chunking.
So, what is this magic? It's a process called chunking, and it's really simple in theory. It's just the art of breaking down your big, messy documents into smaller, more manageable, bite-sized pieces. The trick is to make them small enough for the AI model to handle, but big enough that they still make sense and keep their original meaning. Honestly, it is the single most important first step you can take in a RAG pipeline.
So here's our game plan. We're going to dive straight into a bunch of different chunking toolkits. We'll start with the basics, then level up to some smarter, context-aware methods, and then get into the really specialized stuff. And we'll finish up by figuring out how you can choose the absolute best tool for whatever you're working on.
All right, let's open up our first toolkit. These are your foundational methods. They're simple, they're fast, and a lot of the time, they're all you're going to need. Think of these as your essential hammer, screwdriver, and wrench. Every builder needs them.
Let's break these down. First up, fixed size. This is the simplest of all. It's like telling your program, just cut the text every 200 words, I don't care where. It's super fast, but you could easily slice a sentence right in half and just destroy the meaning. So a step up from that is sentence-based. This is smarter, because it looks for periods and question marks. It respects the boundaries of a complete thought. The problem? Well, some sentences are short, some are really long, so you get these very uneven chunk sizes. And finally, you've got paragraph-based. This is great for things like essays because it keeps a whole group of related sentences together. But if you run into a monster paragraph, it might be too big for your model. See? It's always a trade-off.
Okay, so those were the simple cuts. Now, let's get a little more sophisticated. This next toolkit is all about chunking with some brains, using methods that actually understand and preserve the meaning and flow of your documents. First in our smart toolkit is the sliding window. This is a really clever technique. Instead of making clean breaks, you create chunks that overlap. So as you can see here, the second chunk actually starts before the first one ends. That little 20-word overlap acts like a safety net. It makes sure that important context that connects two ideas isn't lost right at the boundary. This is absolutely perfect for things like legal documents.
Next up, hierarchical chunking. This method is brilliant because it doesn't just treat your document like a big wall of text, it respects the structure that's already there. Think about a technical manual. It's got chapters, then sections, then paragraphs, right? Well, this method creates nested chunks that follow that exact hierarchy. It means your AI can understand context on a big picture level, like the theme of a chapter, and also on a tiny, granular level.
And that brings us to some really advanced AI-powered methods. Semantic-based chunking doesn't just look for periods or line breaks, it uses AI to actually understand the meaning of the words. It can tell when the topic shifts and will create a new chunk right at that point. Then there's content-aware chunking, which is kind of like a chameleon. It analyzes the document and changes its strategy on the fly. It'll see a paragraph and chunk it one way, then see a table and use a completely different method to extract it. Now, both of these are pretty heavy on your computer, but for messy documents with mixed content, they are incredibly powerful.
Okay, we've covered the basics and the brainy tools. Now we get to the really specialized stuff. These are your precision instruments, the tools you pull out for very specific and often very tricky jobs.
This first batch of specialized tools is all about handling documents that aren't just plain old text. Modality-specific chunking is for those messy PDFs that have text, images, and tables all jumbled together. It knows how to handle each part correctly. Then you have table-aware chunking, which is an absolute must-have for things like financial reports. It's designed to pull out tables while keeping their rows and columns perfectly intact. And finally, a simple but effective one, page-based chunking. For PDFs, sometimes just treating each page as its own chunk is the best way to preserve the layout. Now, this next set of tools focuses on the content itself. Token-based chunking is interesting. It breaks text down into tokens, which is exactly how models like GPT-4 see the world. It's super precise for matching model limits, but you do risk breaking a word right in the middle. Then there's keyword-based chunking. This is great for structured papers. It just looks for specific words like introduction or conclusion and starts a new chunk there. And entity-based chunking, this one's really clever. It uses another AI to find important things, like people's names, company names, or dates, and make sure those things never get split up across two chunks. So important for resumes or contracts.
And then you have topic-based chunking. This is a seriously powerful technique. It uses complex algorithms to mathematically figure out the different topics inside a document. So imagine a news article that talks about politics, then the economy, then back to politics. This method is smart enough to pull out all the political sentences and group them into one chunk, and all the economic sentences into another, even if they're scattered all over the place.
And that brings us to the master tool that combines everything: hybrid chunking. Let's be real, most documents aren't simple. They're a messy combination of text, tables, maybe some code, and images. Hybrid chunking is that best of all worlds approach. It lets you mix and match strategies. You can tell your system, hey, use paragraph chunking for the normal text, but if you see a table, switch over to the table-aware method. It's the most flexible and, frankly, the most powerful way to handle complex, real-world documents.
So, that's 15 different tools we've just put in our toolkit. The big question is, which one do you actually use and when? This is where we go from just knowing the tools to really mastering the craft. And it's all about understanding the trade-offs.
So how do you pick? Well, it almost always boils down to this one fundamental trade-off right here. You've got this constant battle between speed and context. Small chunks are super fast for your system to search through, but they might not have enough information to make sense. Large chunks are great for keeping context, but they can be slow and might even be too much for your model to handle. The real art is finding that perfect sweet spot right in the middle.
To make it easier, here's a little cheat sheet to get you started. This gives you a practical guide. For instance, if you're working with a simple FAQ document, each question and answer is its own little world, so a simple sentence-based approach is perfect. But for a super dense legal contract where every clause is connected, you'll want something like sliding window to make sure you don't miss anything. And for a financial report packed with tables, you absolutely have to use a hybrid approach that is table-aware. It's all about matching the tool to the job.
Okay, let's wrap this up with the most important things to remember. First, chunking is not optional. It's absolutely vital for getting accurate and fast answers from your RAG system. Second, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. The type of document you have determines your strategy. Always, always, always think about that trade-off between size, speed, and context. My advice? Start simple and then get more complex if you need to. And remember, for those really messy, real-world documents, a hybrid approach is almost always your best bet.
So I want to leave you with this one last thought. Chunking isn't just some boring technical step in a pipeline. It's how you define reality for your AI. The way you decide to chop up a document fundamentally shapes how your RAG system sees and understands the world. So the real question for you is, how are you going to shape its perspective? Thanks for tuning in.